The GOP, Ted Cruz is making his move. Steve Roberts, ABC News Political Analyst. Good morning, Steve Roberts.
Good morning, McGraw, and I think you're correct about that. And the person who is declining as Cruz is rising is Ben Carson. You know, and this was very predictable. We've thought for months now that Carson, the kind of candidate he is, that history shows that he's a novelty in the beginning. People like his personality, but they take a second and third look at him. They say, is he really qualified to handle foreign policy in a dangerous world? And increasingly, the answer has been no. It's almost exactly the trajectory that Herman Cain faced 4 years ago. The interesting thing is that while Cruz has capitalized, particularly in Iowa, on Carson's decline, the same decline has not happened to Donald Trump, also someone with no experience in foreign policy, no experience in public office. Trump has managed to maintain his altitude in a way that Carson clearly has not, McGraw.
Let's take Ted Cruz, because it seems like Carson's going down means that Cruz has taken his support. That's been really the only real movement over the entire course of the campaign. So these people are not changing their mind the way that they used to in years past.
Well, that's a fair point. You get Marco Rubio has crept up a little bit, but clearly has not taken off in the way some people predicted. And the other blunt fact is the failure of Jeb Bush to move anywhere. He keeps talking a good game. He keeps talking. His supporters put out a brave front. In the last Wall Street Journal, he's at 7 points. 7 points. He's in fifth place. In Iowa, he's in fifth place with 6 points. So that's the other story, is the failure of Jeb Bush to fill that vacuum. You and I have talked about this constantly, that if and when Carson and Trump start to fade, someone is going to have to fill that vacuum. And as you point out, the person who's doing it right now is Ted Cruz. Now, what has happened, though, McGraw, is that because there's been so much attention on Trump, people have not focused on some of the more extreme positions that Ted Cruz has taken. Let's remember, this is a man, John McCain, a fellow Republican, called a wacko bird. So you've got to expect that people are going to start to learn more about Ted Cruz. Now, will that hurt him in the Iowa primaries? No, because the Iowa Republicans are very conservative. Can it hurt him other places? I think the answer is yes.
Well, there's no secret that Republicans in the Senate are not big Ted Cruz fans. He has a long history of not being very friendly to people, even within his own party.
Well, that's absolutely right. And Donald Trump, who very seldom tells the truth, but when he described Ted Cruz as a maniac, or a bit of a maniac recently, in terms of his attitudes in the Senate, that was not off the mark, because the fact is Cruz came to the Senate as a wrecking ball. He came to the Senate and helped ally himself with the most conservative Republicans in the House, helped force a government shutdown, which universally most Republicans believe hurt the party. This is not a guy who has ever worked and played well with others, including people in his own party. But he has run a good campaign. He's raised a lot of money. There's a long story in the Washington Post this morning about his use of advanced analytics and data to identify potential voters. So this guy is definitely going to be a factor. But one of the reasons he's rising in the polls, McGraw, is the failure of Jeb Bush and to some extent Marco Rubio to compete with him. Someone was going to emerge as the non-Carson, non-Trump. And this morning it looks like Cruz, for now, is the person who's doing that.
Well, let's talk Donald Trump for a moment, because it's the more the media and the establishment question him, call him out, expose him, it seems his supporters dig in even more.
I think that's true, but let's put this in perspective. In the Wall Street Journal poll this morning, Trump 59% negative, 27% positive. That is not numbers of someone who's a serious candidate for president, or at least someone who has the potential of winning a national election. E.J. Dionne in the Washington Post this morning analyzed Trump numbers and said, look, there are only about 16% of Americans who would vote for him in a Republican primary. So, yes, he has gotten a lot of attention and done far better than any of us expected. I am conceding that. But let's put it in perspective. If you step back and look at the national electorate, this morning, the possibility of Donald Trump being elected president in this country is close to zero.
Stephen Roberts, ABC News political analyst. Have a great week. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, my friend.
656, Big 550, KTRS.